is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Opinions expressed are those of the show hosts, not necessarily WPSL or Port St. Lucie broadcasters. Any reproduction or reuse of this program without the written consent of WPSL is strictly prohibited. But you are encouraged to like and share it on Facebook because it's time for the African American Scene, presented by Howard Insurance of Port St. Lucie and hosted by Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. And I have to tell you, I will not be here next Wednesday. I am going on a golf outing with a bunch of guys up to Atlanta, so I won't be here next Wednesday.
Golfing in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, with my bad knee. I don't know how much golfing I'm going to do, but anyway, I'm going, and I hope to have a good time. So anyway, if this is the first time you've listened, here's my protocol. I have open mic night tonight, and I will give you a list of topics. I'll come back and give you some background on some of those topics, and then I encourage you to call in with your opinion and to disagree with me if you choose to do so. And I have to say to Steve was kind enough to drop me another letter, one of his famous letters, trying to educate me and save my soul. I always appreciate that. But as I told you at the end of February, this year I'm going to try to come at least once a month with a Black History subject. And I have one for you tonight. The Real Lone Ranger. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Real Lone Ranger, and you're going to be surprised. And I talked about this some time ago, but my uncle discovered this, and he got so excited, and he was so enthusiastic about it that I said, you know what, I'll cover that again on my show. But we're going to talk about the Real Lone Ranger, and his name is Bass Reeves, and you're going to learn a whole lot about the Real Lone Ranger. I then have an article, the top 10 things people want most out of life. I thought that was kind of interesting, so I will share those with you. And I posted this on Facebook soliciting feedback from my followers about Amendment 4. And I have had a very heated dialogue with one of my Facebook guys. I hope it might destroy our friendship because, I mean, it has gotten very heated about this Amendment 4 passed legislation, and then they passed House Bill 7066 on top of Amendment 4, which to me is a bunch of crap. And you heard my pastor was here last week, and he likened it to Jim Crow poll tax, and I happen to agree. And to my surprise, most of the people that posted on my Facebook page also agreed, including a judge and several lawyers.
That's what scares the guys you have problems with on Facebook, because they realize that, hey, there's a lot of people that back you up in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to change the disclaimer a little bit tonight. I was going to say that, when you do call this show, remember, the host of the show has done his homework. So don't call just to yell at him and bash him, because you'll look like a racist and a fool. And I'm just protecting you. I don't want you to feel stupid after looking stupid on the radio. You can't take that picture you create out of the minds of the listeners. So just a fair warning, right, Rudy?
Yes. Okay, and I didn't want to do it, but it's been so much controversy about some of these abortion laws that are being passed, like in Alabama, and there's one in Missouri, and then there's one in Louisiana. And I have some pretty strong opinions about that. And Steve's letter to me today was a subtle message to get me to see my way and understand the value of human life, and I do. But I have my own opinion about abortion, and I'll be glad to share that with you anytime you want. And finally, should Donald Trump provide the requested information for Congress, seeing how we have 3 independent branches of government and they're supposed to all have equal autonomy? And I got to tell you, he has really unnerved me because he has really stomped on the mores and traditions of our democracy, and it's a lot more fragile than I really thought it was. But we got Steve on line 1. Yes, sir.
How you doing, Rudy?
Okay.
I'm going to talk soft because I don't want to hurt your feelings.
Okay.
All right. Amendment 4, I voted no. I'm tired of this creeping tax increases that every little department wants, and they pick you off one by one. Then you get your tax bill, and you have cardiac arrest.
That's not what Amendment 4 is.
Amendment 4 for the schools?
No. Amendment 4 was legislation that was passed to restore the rights of felons who have served their time. And
well, yeah, I'm all for that.
Okay, well, that's what Amendment 4 was about.
There's an Amendment 4 for schools also.
Oh, okay, all right.
They want a $1 million increase.
Yeah.
But if you serve your time, you should be restored as a citizen. Simple.
Yeah, I think so.
Don't put the guy behind the 8 ball after he just came out from behind the 8 ball. That's crazy.
And let me tell you, Florida is only one of 4 states where your rights are taken away permanently. And under the old system, the only way you could get your rights restored is through the Governor's Clemency Board. And
right.
To me, that's just ridiculous.
Right.
Because
I got one for you.
Yeah.
If you have a medical marijuana card, you cannot own a firearm. But you can be an alcoholic and own a firearm.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Thank you for educating
right.
me. Yeah.
I'll give you another one. This
Okay.
legislation passed this year. If you're committed to a mental institution, judged to be nuts, and then a doctor comes along and says you are no longer nuts, and it's 12 o'clock, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you go out and buy a firearm.
Interesting.
Does that scare you?
Yeah, it does. That does.
Yeah, and here's the point. People are not paying attention. They've got this let somebody else do it. Well,
Yes.
these other people that are doing it are mental cases.
I agree with you on that.
The
They're
legislators?
destroying it.
Oh, no. Oh, okay. I just misunderstood.
Go ahead. You were saying. I think what he's saying. I think what Steve is saying is, as a whole, the public is not paying attention.
That's right.
And
They're
they-
asleep.
And they slide stuff by us all the time, and because they think they can get away with it, and too often they do get away with it.
They got away with this mental health gun bill while the press was so worried about an election that's 18 months away and all the propaganda that's out there now that really means nothing. But while they were watching that, they slipped this through.
Yep.
The NRA did.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there going, now wait a minute. The guy's nuts at noon, but at 1 he's okay, and he
Yeah.
can buy a gun?
Yeah.
This is nuts in itself.
Yeah, it
But
is.
America, I don't care what color you are, I don't care what nationality you are. If you're not out there voting, then don't call yourself an American.
Amen on that.
That's my feeling right away. If
Yeah.
you're not And by the way, I have a remedy for that.
Okay.
Driving is a privilege. Voting is a right. If you're not willing to exercise your rights, why should we reward you with a privilege?
Yeah.
In other words, you don't get a license unless you register to vote.
That's very interesting. But here's the thing
coercion.
but here's the thing I would say, Steve, because you and I grew up under this system. They had the selective service system that got everybody to go down and register for armed services.
Except women.
Yeah. Why can't they do the same thing with voting?
Exactly. And why can't women register for the draft? They do it in every other country. In Israel, women serve 2 years mandatory.
Absolutely, in Israel. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And, you don't have to draft somebody for a war. I've said all along, you could draft people and use them in schools. You could use them in hospitals, nursing homes. There's all kinds of places. You could have MPs at schools instead of deputy sheriffs.
Okay.
Who's going to take on an MP?
Yeah.
Your nursing homes, you could have medics in there helping out.
Yeah.
And we're paying these guys anyway to sit on these bases and march around and do all these drills. How about paying them to do some good for benefit for the country?
You get no argument out of me about that.
Well, I'm telling you, when they dropped me off from the spaceship, they told me to keep low. I should have listened.
Okay, Steve, thank you.
But I'll let you go.
All right, my friend.
You take care.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I have to tell you that he said a lot of things there, none of which that I could really disagree with. But let me tell you about this. Because I got a feeling I'll get so entangled up in some of these other topics I'll never be able to get to you. Have you ever heard of the name Bass Reeves? Bass Reeves is considered to be the real Lone Ranger. They think there's a gentleman that wrote a book, and in his book he states that he believes the Lone Ranger was based on Bass Reeves. Bass Reeves was born in Arkansas. He was forced by his family to participate in the Confederate Army, but then he goes on to serve in the territory against some of the thieves and scoundrels that were roaming around the Wild West and making it unsafe. And this guy had a remarkable record. He was the first U.S. Marshal in the South. And it is alleged that he arrested over 3,000 people and killed at least 14 others. And like the Lone Ranger, some of his tactics were that he dressed in disguises to creep up on the people that he was after, which is why the author of the book, and the name of the book is called Black Gun, Silver Star. The author says it's just too many coincidences that the Lone Ranger did all the same things that this guy Bass Reeves did. It's pretty cool though. But you can pull that book, and I got a call. Mark on line 1. Yes, sir.
Hi, I want to talk about Amendment 4.
Okay.
I voted for it, but I don't think it went far enough because it still eliminated some people from ever getting their voting rights back.
Yeah. But a very, very, very small, until House Bill 7066, the only people that couldn't get their voting rights back were murderers and felons who were sex offenders. But now, with House Bill 7066, I don't know. There's going to be a substantial expansion of people that may not get their voting rights back. So I kind of agree with you on that.
Yeah, I understand those are pretty bad crimes, but if they've served their time, it's like anything else. They've paid for their mistake, and I think they should get the rights back.
Yeah, Mark, I posted this as a discussion. I usually try to post a topic that I'm going to talk about on Wednesday nights on Facebook. And one of the guys that communicated was a guy I knew from high school. And he was telling me about the fact that they did a crime. And I wrote back to him and said, March, you and I went to high school together. How many guys do you know when we were in high school did something stupid that could have landed them in the pokey?
Yep, I remember reading that.
Oh, you remember reading that, right?
Yep.
Okay. And you saw what he said. He wrote back
Yep.
and said, he said, absolutely. Well, yeah, because you know what? Young people do dumb stuff. I did, Mark. I did dumb stuff.
Yep, I did too. And what really bothers me, my son did, and he's currently in prison. And the way the law is now, when he gets out, he will never be able to vote again.
No, let's hope not. Let's hope not.
Yep.
Because, the other part of that too, Mark, is if we're a Christian nation and we're always talking about our Christianity, I am certain, beyond the shadow of a doubt, if the Lord was here walking this earth, he wouldn't be saying, okay, they went to jail, so now you make them an outcast in society for the rest of their life. That's not who our Lord is.
Exactly.
But anyway, I'm going to say a prayer and hope that we can get this. I think there's going to be a fight on this House Bill 7066, but Mark, you know why this is happening. I don't have to tell you, you're a smart guy. You know what's happening. You know what's happening.
Yep.
They don't want them votes to come out.
Right.
And doing some research, we have over 1.5 million felons whose rights have been taken away, which is 3 to 4 times more than almost any other city in any other state in the country. We got a humongous amount of people with no rights.
Yes, we do. And that's not right.
No, it's not. I agree with you completely. Thank you, sir, so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, I have had a very passionate discussion with somebody about this, and it may have wrecked our friendship, but hey, this is just the way it is. I feel very, very strongly about the restoration of rights. The way that bill was fashioned, and I've heard it said by lawyers, I've heard it said by legislators, the bill was passed to be implemented. There was nothing else to do. The bill said if you served your time and you have fulfilled your obligation regarding probation, your rights were to be restored. Now, what they've done now with House Bill 7066 is saying your rights can be restored if you have paid all your fees and any other retributions that you were or may have been required to pay by the court. Now, I'm going to give you something to think about. All of those of you who are kind of on that side, I want you to think about this for a second. You're 20 years old, okay? Could be Mark's son. You do something stupid. You go to jail for 3 years, 5 years, okay? Say you go to jail for 5 years when you're 20 years old. Now you're 25. You live an exemplary life. And at 45, you try to get your rights back. And they say to you, oh, go back and prove to me that you paid all your fees and retributions from 20 years ago. It could be 30 years ago. It could be 40 years ago. Now you go back and prove that. That is insane. That's insane. It's stupid to make people do that. If people have served their time and people have fulfilled their parole, all of which I think are perfectly fine, that you should have to do that. Don't put another roadblock in. They already did whatever time that they had to do, 5, 6, 7, 10 years, whatever it is. They already had to do that. Now you're going to go and try to make them jump through another hoop because you're afraid that the vote that they may take is not consistent with what you think it should be. Baloney, I say, baloney. That's not who we are as a people. That's not who we are as a country. And that is not what happened when they passed that law. Do you know they spent almost $3.4 million collecting those signatures? They had to get 768,000 signatures in order to get this on the ballot. And they did it. And they spent that money in order to do it, which means a lot of people put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and poured a lot of their resources in because they felt that was the right thing to do. Now, and this is the debate I've had with this person. If the people felt that was what they wanted and it passed 65%, not 50%, not 51%, it passed 65%. That means the vast majority of Floridians wanted those people to have their rights back. How dare you? How dare you do anything to trample on that which the people have told you they wanted? They spoke with their time, their energy, their blood, sweat, and tears, and now you're going to come along and pass a bill that obviates some of that hard work they did? Why? That's just ridiculous. It makes no sense. And it's an insult to those people who have put all that effort in. So I don't know, but I feel very, very strongly about that. And I feel part of the reason why I feel so strongly about that is because of my Christian beliefs. I believe people have a right to be restored. No question about it. And we have Steve on line 1. Yes, sir.
Hey, Rudy.
Yes, sir.
Just to throw some information in. It does cost, I don't know, I think in Florida it's over $50,000 a year per inmate. It really does cost a lot of money to keep our inmates and the medical fed and all that mess too. So, yeah, they do serve their time. That may be true. But it also has been a detriment, whatever time they sell, taking a spin. It takes away from the rest of society that money that could go to help other things too. That's just part of the mix, you know. And I can understand on petty crimes. And you knew when you and I were growing up, before 21, if you had a crime committed, it was a juvenile crime, remember, or 18.
Depends
that
on
didn't
where you
go
live.
on your record.
Depends on where you live at.
Yeah, well, in Florida it was that way.
Okay, well, that's where you lived at.
Okay.
It wasn't like that in Philadelphia, I could tell you.
Yeah.
But okay.
And partially I can understand the theory behind it, because our prison system is not very good at rehabilitating people either. The return rate is very high. And if you want to go as far as Bernie Sanders, you can say, well, why don't even prisoners get to vote? You know, it's hard for people to understand what the difference between a right and a privilege is. And I challenge you to go back and look when they were talking about, and philosophically, points of view about what a right is and what a privilege is. And people throw those two words around all the time when they're not equal. Our Constitution identifies the rights. They're given to us by God, and those things shouldn't be able to be taken away. They're given to us. But a privilege is something that is given to us as an opportunity. So that's another thing that goes in the mix. But I want to go one step farther. You know, a lot of people, just to throw this in the mix too, a lot of people are against capital punishment because they think people can change too. But I throw this in the mix too, that Jesus took on capital punishment for us. Because God is a just God, justice has to be served at the same time as redemption. And if there is no justice in a way that is just, and
who decides that?
Justice means following the law.
Who decides what's just?
Who decides what is justice?
Yeah. Who decides that?
Well,
okay.
From the United States point of view, it's identified right there in the first.
Since you mixed in the Lord with justice, I want you to tell me who defines what justice is.
Well, in the United States, it was defined by our rights are given to us by God, and we have privileges. And under those privileges, we decided to make laws. Under those laws, they were supposed to be definite so that people understand where the law stands and when the line is crossed. And it's the same way in Christianity. Christianity, the Old Testament was to identify what sin was. So we have the Ten Commandments, so that by Jesus dying on the cross, justice was fulfilled, that he can step in place for us. So justice, it depends on if we throw God out of the mix and it's all human opinion, your idea and my idea, like the letter I wrote, if we can make up our own laws and man's opinions, what they say about our opinions, assume this, well, that's what happens. You and I will disagree on a lot of different things. But when there's definites to go by, then we can identify those rights and those privileges, then we can have a conversation. But once we run into opinions, you and I, we disagree all the time.
Well,
even though I love you as a Christian brother.
Yeah. Well, thank you. But listen, when you talk about justice, they've come up with all kinds of things as in terms of administering justice that was inappropriate, and called it appropriate, and said it was sanctioned by the Lord, especially some of the things that happened to African Americans, to be precise. So, when you talk about that, that's like you're talking out of both sides of your mouth, because many of the things that in fact were done to African American people were done under the auspices of the fact that it was of a Christian nature.
Yeah,
did you know? I found out something recently. Did you know that there was a slave Bible?
I know, but understand.
No. Answer my question. Do you know what is a slave Bible?
If I remember right, it was a collection of different scriptures that they had gotten together, and they created a Bible so that they would have God's word.
No. The slave Bible it looked like a regular Bible, but they took out all the parts where they thought that the slaves might be encouraged to disobey the masters, such as Exodus, Galatians, and a couple other books. They took those out, and then they delivered the Bible to the slaves and said, "This is the Bible." And there's a curator who went out and he found this Bible, and he's been preaching to people so that they know what a nefarious, underhanded, dirty thing was done by creating this slave Bible.
Yeah, Rudy, but we're playing apples and oranges here.
There is no apples and oranges, Steve.
Why?
There is no apples and oranges.
If we go to men like in that letter I just sent you, if we go to the understanding, and that's what those men did, they tried to create God's word in the way they wanted to create it. And that means, if in the entirety, that means God doesn't exist. And that's the problem we have right now, is you keep giving examples of what men did, what men did, what men did. I told you 100 times before, if we treat our lives like victims, we're going to be a victim. But if we treat our lives like we're opportunities for God, we can overcome any victimhood, because God is our guide. God is our witness. God is our strength. His word is what guides our lives. But if we take down the road, which I tried to point out in the letter, that it's okay for abortion because we know better than God, or it's okay for gay marriage because we know better than God, or if it's okay to say that our genders are anything we want to make them up, we're playing a game which is basically blasphemy. It's saying, I know better than God. My thoughts are higher than his thoughts. And that's not the way it's going to ever work, Rudy. It has never worked in this society, and it never will.
Okay, and here's the other part that you're going to have to accept.
No, I don't have to accept.
No, you don't. No, you don't have to. But I'm going to give it to you whether you like it or not. The fact of the matter is that the Bible is interpreted by man.
Okay.
He is when a pastor goes to the pulpit and he begins to preach, he preaches his understanding of the word. There is no pastor in the history of the world who can say categorically every single word they said for sure was the way exactly the Lord wanted it said. They preached their understanding of the word. So as much as you would like for it to be purely by God, there is an interpretation by a human person who is reading the word and then applying his or her reason and logic to it.
Okay.
Now let me just get to one more thing before we go on this, because you said a word that I have very strong feelings about when we talk about abortion. People talk about abortion who are pro-life. People are not pro-life; they're pro-birth. There's a difference between pro-life and pro-birth. How can you be pro-life and then you don't want anybody to have health insurance or so that they can live? I got a nephew who's 50 years old who's now dead because he couldn't get health insurance to treat his diabetes. What's that? Is that pro-life?
Rudy, you're going back into the human understanding, and this is what I'm saying.
Oh, please,
and
Steve.
I would love to come and talk with you. I'll come by your office anytime, and we'll discuss this on a biblical point of view. Keep politics out of it.
Yeah, well,
keep the politics out of it.
We'll have
would you be willing for me to do that sometime?
Sometime we can have that discussion if you'd like.
Okay, but what I'm trying to get the point is, and I said this in my letter.
And this is your last point too.
Okay, it's fine. You don't use human understanding interpretations to interpret the Bible because, again, it's an opinion. You use the Bible to interpret the Bible, not circular reasoning, as some people would say, but you use the Bible. The Bible, if it's God's word, it should stand on its own. If it doesn't, then we're back in square one again. Everything is an opinion, and then there is no definites. And that's where we can't be, Rudy, because that's what's causing all the problems in the United States right now. We're all living these opinions that we think so strongly of because we feel them, but we don't have any definites to say, you're right, you're wrong, you're right, you're wrong. The Constitution is all right for one over here. The Constitution was about slavery. America was all formed on slavery. All these opinions, all they do is tear us down. What we need to do is get back to understanding of where the definites are. What is a right? What is a privilege? What is just? What is unjust?
No, you went to school. Yeah, right. That's just,
we went through 12th grade, Steve.
Yeah, right. That's ridiculous, Steve. But okay.
If we can't come to a conclusion, Rudy, then you understand. We are frail, and therefore, no matter, you use the same as my start of my letter. You've given some conservatives all the facts, and you couldn't change their mind.
Oh, that's okay.
Not okay.
Yes, it is. Because when I'm here Wednesday nights, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm trying to get you to think in a manner that maybe you hadn't thought of until you listen to me. That's my mission.
Well,
and it's
if
working.
If I said the same thing that you said about 2 weeks ago, where, I'm going to say things that white people will never say to black people, because I want the black people to know just how white people think, because I know how white people think, and you use the word black on all that, I would have been called racist. And again, it's human opinions that we're talking about. If we can't find definite.
No. Some things are not human opinions.
Okay.
There's some things.
I'll challenge you before we have our meetings.
You can't challenge me, because you're not up for that, because I'm a lot smarter than you think I am. So you be wasting your time, and I am pretty well read. So you're welcome to try that if you'd like, but you be walking into some tall grass. Okay?
You're so sure of yourself.
I'm very sure of myself. I am very sure of myself. You have to go, Steve. I'll see you later. Winnie, how are you? Winnie. Is that Winnie?
Okay, I'd like to change the gear a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, that guy Robert, he blowed up this week. Robert F. Smith.
Yes.
Yeah, that was good. He did the Morehouse.
Oh boy, that was amazing.
Oh, that was good. He paid off the student loans.
Yes, he did. That was awesome.
That was.
Yeah.
My neighbor said she was out of school. She got a bachelor, a master, probably got both. And she been out of, she did work the 4 Piers of state attorneys. She said that she's still paying on her. But that's bad. 30 years.
Oh, yeah. I got it.
Oh, my gosh.
That's not unusual, Winnie. I got a niece that lives in North Carolina. She went to North Carolina undergraduate school, and got her master's degree at the University of North Carolina. She owed about $50,000.
Yeah, what they were. I heard.
$50,000, man. That's a lot of money.
I heard Tom Jordan Silver say some on 84,000, some on 100,000.
Yeah.
Oh my, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. He did that for the students, and that get them a head start, and really that changed their life.
Yes, it did.
It changed their life forever. They don't have that debt. They don't have that debt like that,
Yeah.
That's true. My God, that's ridiculous. And I'm happy for that, for him and everything. But he the first richest black man in America. That's what I hear.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, he is.
The guy paying for all those student debt loans.
Yeah, I heard about him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I never knew. I never heard of him before. How long he been around?
He's been around a while. He was an engineer, and then he got into investments, and he's just made a lot of money. So.
On investment. Oh, that's a great thing. Okay, I hear on CNN about Democrats still gonna try to impeach the Donald.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, so it's working for them, huh?
I think so.
You think it gonna happen?
I think it might. Yes, I think it might.
It might. Okay. Now we'll see. All right. Have a good day, y'all. Have a good night.
Okay. Winnie, take care. Carlos.
Rudy, what's going on?
Nothing much. How you doing?
All right. Hey, do you have personally any conservative friends or relatives or people that you know that are conservative?
Yes, I know a couple people that are conservative. Yeah.
is there any way that you could call them in and have them come into the show sometimes? Because every time you get somebody in there, they're like in the left. You know what I mean? Is there any way
Hey, we got enough right-wing stuff on this radio station. Rudy is the fair and balanced portion of this radio station.
Hey, Rudy, another question. Is there any way that you could dig up Malcolm X, that speech that he had? He said like a week before he got assassinated, where he said that the blacks vote for Democrats and he called them chumps and all that. Is there any way you could dig that up and play it on there one day?
I could, but what would be the point of that? So what you're trying to say is that black people don't lack the individual fortitude to vote for what's in their own best interests?
I think you hit it on the nose.
Okay, well now let me ask you a question.
Go ahead, sir.
You're Hispanic.
Yes.
How could you vote for Trump being Hispanic? Tell me how. Tell me how you could vote for Trump being Hispanic. The way he treated Puerto Rico, and the way he has treated people that have come across the borders. Now, tell me how you can do that.
Oh, so you mean to tell me people who are coming across the border illegally? I mean, we're not a nation of laws, Rudy?
I'm just asking. I'm asking you the same thing. I'm asking you the same thing you asked me.
I'm telling you, hey, he's lucky he's in the office. If I would have been in the office, I would have shipped them all back in a heartbeat, just like Obama did. Obama's got the record of shipping them back.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, you see. So why would Hispanics vote for Obama?
Because Obama. I'll tell you why. Because
if you ship millions of them back.
Because you know why? Because Obama created DACA. And because he was trying but he was trying to help Hispanic people born here in this country through no fault of their own, and trying to allow them to continue to live their life here.
Right, I get that, but when you have a record of sending back millions, not hundreds of thousands, millions of Hispanics back, more than any president from George Washington all the way to Trump, you put them all together. Obama beat on them put together. So how would a Hispanic vote for that? That's what I don't get.
Okay, I'm telling you why. Because he saved about 750,000 young people who had been born here that have been shipped back to a country that they knew nothing about.
What you mean? What you mean they were born here? Where were they? Where are the parents?
Most of the people that most of the people that were DACA kids were born in the United States at a very young age, and many served military service. Many of them went to college here.
Right, but wait, let me
finish. But doesn't matter about the parents. But what I'm saying to you is that they live here. They knew nothing. Some of them might not even have spoke the language anymore. And you're going to send them back there?
Yes, you got to send them back to their parents. They got to go back to their parents.
Suppose the parents are here. Suppose the parents are here.
Then you ship them all out. If they're here illegally, you ship them all out.
So if your mother and father are here, and you were born, wait, just let me finish, because I know this. What I'm getting ready to tell you to be true. Your mother and father are here. You're born here. You go to school here. You graduate from high school here. You go to college here. You don't speak Spanish.
It doesn't matter.
Wait a second. You don't speak Spanish. Now, because your parents were not born here, you gotta go too. I have to go. If I served in the military and I put my life on the line for the United States, wait, let me finish. If I put my life on the line for the United States of America and my parents were illegal, you're saying I gotta go. Huh?
You're a person who's of age to go to the service and risk his life serving this country. Yes, he's of age to stay here. But if he's a young DACA kid, send him back to his parents.
No, Carlos, let me tell you, they're sending people back who served in the military.
So did Obama.
Trump did. No, Obama didn't do that.
Obama said millions.
Yes,
millions.
he did. Yes, he did. But Obama didn't do that.
You know why? Because Obama said they're breaking the law.
But
The
Obama
nation
didn't.
of laws.
Obama didn't send people who had served in the military out of the country after they had put their life on the line for the United States.
You don't know that.
I do know that.
Malcolm X and play one day. Keep us conservatives a little happy on your channel. I mean, we are part of your family.
Yes, you are. I enjoy you very much. But I just was asking you the same thing that you were trying to ask me. You were trying to you made the innuendo that because I'm black, that I'm always voting Democratic, and you don't see how I could do that. And I'm trying to figure out how you, as a Hispanic man, could vote for Trump.
Because he took jobs.
Okay,
Obama took jobs away. This guy brought jobs. I got money in my pocket now. I've been working so hard. I used to call like every week to your show. And I've been working so hard. I've been going out of state, everywhere.
I gotta let you go, Carlos. I got another call coming. Take care, my friend. Jay, how are you, sir? Jay, how you doing?
Yeah, could you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, no, I was just a little upset listening to that conversation, trying to make up words for Malcolm X and trying to demise that man that put his life on the line every day for peace and justice.
Yeah,
it's just disgusting. And also I want to know why the Cubans were given so much of a play coming here, and they don't want to keep DACA here, but they kept the Cubans here. They even had houses waiting for the Cubans when they brought them here as refugees. They didn't have to worry about nothing. They went on, they gave them welfare checks when they got here. So what are these people with, Hispanics, that Cubans, they think that they, nobody else counts but them. It's really kind of sad. What I wanted to ask you, and I'm listening, and I watched the news and everything, they never call white supremacists and the KKK domestic terrorism, not even Homeland Security. They're supposed to watch out for everything that goes on in this country. When you have a lot of terrorists, a lot of Jewish temples and mosques being bombed and people being shot, people going in there with machine guns shooting on people as they're praying, and these people are part of white supremacist groups. I thought that was domestic terrorism, Rudy.
It is. It is.
That's what I always thought. Now, I don't know how they come up with the terminologies, but that's what I always thought with domestic terrorism.
It is domestic terrorism.
But I don't understand why they just won't come out and say it. It seems like they're not being told not to call those folks because of their hue domestic terrorists. Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of sad, but it all comes down to everything that you're talking about to the people on the radio today. It all comes down to that question I just asked you about domestic terrorism, and they won't probably would avoid that making that statement themselves. They wouldn't want them to be labeled like that. I don't know why they wouldn't, but it's true.
Well,
it's so sad, man.
They took some of the white supremacist groups off of the terror watch list, and I really don't understand that at all. But they did that. Now I haven't been able to figure that out yet.
That's crazy. That's just really crazy, because if they're creating havoc, and it's not going to get any better, because the way it looks to me, the deeper we get into this thing, and if we ever get into the point where they really start impeaching President Trump for all the wrongdoings he's done, we might see more violence out here, and that's why you have to be, you got to be careful where you go, and especially when you're on the road. I always have to warn my family members when they're traveling. I always tell them, just be careful where you go. When you stop.
Bring your green book.
Yeah, you just be careful where you're stopping and where you're going to eat and where you're going to stay. And
listen, I'm going to say something I know you can relate to.
Yeah.
Because you and I are about the same age.
Right.
I'm a little bit more nervous now than I was in the 60s. Because everything now is so covert.
Yeah.
And you know, in the 60s, it was overt. So you had those people who could clearly see injustice and would find that unacceptable.
Yeah.
Today, it's not clear. So people do stuff, dirty stuff, underhanded stuff, and you don't see it. And then somebody says, you're whining or you're playing the victim.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty unnerving to me. I don't know. That's the way I look at it.
I just want to leave folks with this, so even maybe it might help some people think a little bit and just be a little cautious when you're out there driving. Just look out for the road rage. Just try not to get into any confrontation with anybody, because just about everybody got guns out there, and just be careful.
Yeah.
Because it don't make sense, to lose your life for something very simple and stupid. All you had to do is just pull over to the right, let them go. Don't look at them when they give you the finger. Just don't agitate it. Just let them go. Take care, Rudy. Have a nice day, man.
Okay, Jay.
Thanks,
you.
Jay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's probably some very good advice. And the older I am, the easier it is to follow that advice.
I don't know. I think with age there comes a bit of wisdom.
Yeah.
Because you can be educated and know something, but then as you get older, then you know that you know, and then the older you get, you even know that even more.
Oh yeah.
And it's a lot of about life's experiences, and there's nothing wrong with. One of my favorite things I used to do as a younger man, I liked to back then hang out with the old guys and listen to them, because they got something to say, and young and rebellious as I was back then, I enjoyed listening to them because they'd tell me things nobody else would tell me.
Well, with black guys, it was the barbershop.
Yeah.
You could go to the barbershop, and the old guys would be in there pontificating about what they did back in the day, and if they liked you, they'd pull you aside and give you a little pearls of wisdom. I remember that very well.
Oh yeah.
Growing up, going to the barbershop and listening to the guys in there talking. So matter of fact, LeBron has a show on HBO. I think it's called The Shop, and he has, I guess it's about a half a dozen of them in the barbershop talking about current events. So that brought back memories to just watch them doing that. So, but it's something to think about. But anyway, we made it again, another show.
Wow.
Remember, folks, I won't be here next Wednesday, but I will be here the following Wednesday. I'm going to be going on a little golf outing.
Wow.
So
take some pictures with a cell phone and send them to us.
Yeah.
Don't try to hit the ball while taking a selfie, though. It doesn't work.
Yeah, that's not going to work. But look, you guys take care. Be safe. And I will see you 2 weeks from tonight. And thank you for tuning in to the African American scene. God bless and be safe.
Different, wasn't it? This is not your everyday average run-of-the-mill conservative talk show that you'll hear on WPSL. This is the exception to the rule. It's the African American scene, brought to you by Howard Insurance in Port St. Lucie and hosted by Rudy Howard, who'll probably be glad to know that we'll probably take tonight's show and play it again next week. That's right, because, the calls were great. Yeah, they were. They were great, because that's what we do. We generate calls. And this is WPSL, Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast, webcaster to the world. And we are in the process right now, celebrating now 26 years and counting.